our 12 weeks of Christmas empowerment series at Team Beauty Official. How excited are we today on episode 7 that we get to be in our brand new podcast room, and most importantly that each and every single one of you that has been listening has been able to get value. You've been able to become motivated, inspired, and I just want to take this time to thank all of you for tagging us, for sending those messages of all of the beautiful takeaways that you have received in the first half of these 12 weeks of empowerment series. And today we have a very, very special guest in this brand new room. Yes, I am beyond excited. You're going to hear brand new room like 3 times or more today. But this special guest has been with us since the very beginning. Somebody who started the journey and immediately became a boss babe and partner inside of our vision, our mission, and everything that we wanted to accomplish with Team Beauty. And I am always inspired by her, always look up to her, whether she knows it or not. Now you do. Please help me welcome President's team member, Jessica Bella.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here today.
How do you feel?
I feel honored to be here sharing a little bit of my story. I feel like I've always wanted to have that platform just to be able to share, the things that I've been through in light and hopes that I can, help someone that is going through or has gone through something similar. So I'm excited to be here and yeah.
Thank you. Well, episode 7, we're going to talk about being a survivor. But before we go into that, Bella, why don't you share with everybody a little bit about you, before Team Beauty found you, what were you doing? Why did you say yes to Team Beauty? And then we'll get right into it.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I'm actually was a business owner right when Team Beauty found me. I had just opened my store. I had it open for less than a week. Okay, I've been an entrepreneur for a long time already. I've had a lot of businesses in my entire lifetime at different points in my life. But at that point, I was completely on my own with my businesses. And I say businesses because I had several. So definitely when I found Team Beauty, I was in need of the community. I was in need of the empowerment, in need of change mostly in my life, right? I was a party girl. Okay, so I did that for a really long time. I think I started at the age of 16. And that kind of just took my life in a whole different direction, right? So taking it way back, right? That's pretty much when I started to get lost, and how they say, right, that your life can either go one way or another depending on the people that you hang out with. And I definitely chose, friends that took me down the wrong path. Well, myself, right? But my life completely changed, right, around that age. So. Also, I'm a teen mom, right? I had my daughter really young. I was 14 when I got pregnant, and I had my daughter at 15. So that was definitely life-changing. And so, my life has had a lot of major events that I feel led me to find this, amazing movement that at some point, I needed more than anything else, right? I got to the point where I was looking for change, and this is where I feel that like everything that you do and you go through in life, at some point, it leads you exactly to where you need to be.
Wow, yes. So, let's take it from there. I mean, you mentioned that you got pregnant at 14. Right, and had your baby at 15. So, I mean, for all the teen moms listening today, right, this is going to be powerful. How was that, like, finding out you're pregnant at 14?
Yeah, it was scary. It was scary. I mean, just to say the least, right? And there's a lot of things that I feel that happened, in that time. my sister used to have me sneak out with her at the age of 12. Okay, I didn't know. She just would take me to Mexico to the clubs, and I was just sitting there waiting for her to finish partying. And I was like, why? I didn't know. Like, I didn't know what was going on. I was so naive. And I feel like because of the way we were raised, right, I was very naive overall. Right, I was the smallest one. I'm the youngest child in my family. I didn't know anything about my period. So when that happened to me, it was just like, oh, you got your period. And so little things like that, right? I didn't know anything about sex. Nobody talked to me about it. Aside from what they talked to at school, it wasn't something that I had someone telling me, hey, like, you gotta, like, be careful, take care of your body, like, honor yourself, things like that, right? So I was really young. I fell in love with this boy. He came from New York. I met him in church too, and it was just like that instant, puppy love, fell in love. And I saw my sister leaving with her boyfriend and doing that, so I felt like, hey, my sister's been taking me out. Like, it never crossed my mind that I was just too young for that, right? Like, even though I've always felt like I was super mature, always. And it's like, for me to think that at that age, it's like, what was I thinking? Right? And I see it now, right? When I see my nieces or my nieces' kids, and they're all young and stuff, it's like, damn, like, what was I thinking, right? Like, it was just crazy to think that I thought that I was a mature woman at the age of 14. But, it happened. And, at that point, it was just so scary, right? I was so scared. My parents raised me in church. We went, to church every week, and, we followed certain things, certain, I guess you could say, beliefs, right? That we had to abide by. And so it was very like, we're going to church, and it wasn't something that we had the option to do. It was more something that we had to do, right? And it was scary. Like, my sister got pregnant. Like, we found out about a month before that she was pregnant, and then I found out I was pregnant, so I told her about it. And she was older, though. She was 4 years older than me, so she was already of age. And I didn't know how I was going to tell them, but it was a huge deal. It was a huge deal, like, crying, and, my dad went crazy, and it was like, trying to get the cops involved with my, with the, like, all sorts of things. And then finally, like, that simmered down, and, I ended up getting married at the super young age, right? Like
they made you get married.
Well, we wanted to at that point, right? Okay. But yes, it was something that they were gonna enforce. Yeah. And I mean, that didn't last very long. But it was definitely a moment where you have to just grow up. Like, you made this decision, right?
Yes.
And now you have to figure it out. So my parents started, I lived at home still. My daughter's dad, he would leave to go work, and I lived at home with my parents and started paying bills, started having to contribute, and like, my mind just already started thinking, like, okay, as soon as I can work, I'm gonna work. So at 15, I left to a alternative high school. I didn't want to finish high school there. I was like, no, like, I have to finish school so I can graduate. And
fast.
Yeah, that was my thoughts at the time. And I was still on track, right, until I went to that alternative school. So at that point, I met someone, said, hey, my mom's looking for someone, like, they need, like, she needs help doing income tax returns. So at the age of 15, I started doing tax returns. That's why I could relate to your mom when she tells her story. So at 15, there I am, right, getting paid cash, like, just becoming an adult, trying to provide to my daughter. I didn't really know how to drive. It's just crazy, like, how fast, like, just your life can change with one decision, right? And they just gave me the keys and said, here, like, you have to start taking your daughter to daycare and drive yourself to school. So it was just like, all of a sudden, I have this new life. I have all this responsibility,
yes.
and I still haven't even fully grown up. Okay, so, like, it was like, I'm living this life, right? And I haven't done any of the things that young kids do. And I haven't done any of that. I didn't ever, like, experience a lot of the things, right? And the late nights, and, like, with my daughter, like, right? I pretty much raised her by myself with my mom, even though her dad was in the picture. He did work out of town, so he was always present for a few days at a time. And and that's where I got the first like taste of, hey, I'm a single mom pretty much, right? And my parents, my mom specifically, was always there to help me, right? And it was a tough time, and of course over time, right, that changed for them. The anger, the hurt that they felt, it changed over time. But it was hard at the beginning. It was a lot of crying, a lot of, they were hurt, like they were really, really hurt. And of course, for me, it was a very scary time just to know that I was so young and that I had to push a baby out of my my body, like. But yeah, it was a crazy time. Like I honestly, to be honest, I don't put a lot of thought into that anymore because it's been so long. My daughter actually turns 24 tomorrow, so. And yeah, I get that. You have a 24-year-old.
Yeah, yeah, you're 24.
Yeah.
She's 24, and you are how old now?
39.
39. Yeah. So Bella, obviously beautiful, beautiful, staying young, looking good, and then you have a 24-year-old because you had her when you were 15 years old, and it's very interesting as you're talking about all of this. I'm putting myself like in your shoes, thinking about, like so many times we're grown. I had my first baby at 26, right? So it's like, it's hard. Yeah. Regardless, it doesn't matter the age. And so there is something about you that I've always seen that it's like, you're always the woman that, pushes forward and figures it out. Yeah. And so, thinking about that, you're a mom of two now. You also have Ramsey, and had him young too, right? At what age did you have Ramsey?
22.
At 22. And you've always been this like hustler. That's how I see you, right? Like not like the Hustlers movie. I know. Do they go down like that kind of? But you're like this hustler in my mind. Like, you went through that at 15, obviously, had your second child, and you've had multiple businesses. So what's that mindset, or what's that little voice inside of your head that you tell yourself, like, it doesn't matter, keep going, keep searching, keep, looking for the next opportunity?
I mean, for me, I think it's been like a survival thing, and going back to when I was younger, when I got divorced and I met Ramsey's dad, we got into a relationship, and I met this man that was a good man, right, out of the military, working as a substitute teacher, giving his time to the Boys and Girls Club to help kids and all these things that you think, oh, he's a good guy, right? And then that changed, over the months, right? But right before I met him, I moved out of my parents' home 2 weeks before I turned 18. And at that point, my roommate introduced me to, her sister-in-law, and right there, like, that completely changed my life because that's when I started to make these friends that were involved in illegal things. And, so right there was that little chispita, like that I could make easy money. And I didn't want to go back home because my parents were so strict with me, even though I had a child, I had a job, I paid my own car, I paid bills at the house, I paid my own food. I was 100% responsible for me and my daughter. And my dad was really strict with me, and I was a rebel at that time. Also, I was a rebel. I wanted to rebel against my parents, and so that
you wanted out of the house.
I wanted out. Yeah, I just wanted to be the adult that I already felt that I was. Right. Obviously, I wish I would have had a different mindset back then, but that's what happened, right? And so I meet these people that introduced me to making that fast money illegally, right? So. I did that for a couple years, and then met Ramsey's dad. And so then, that's kind of how things just started to get really crazy in my life, right? Like, you meet that one person, and, I didn't make wise decisions, and I didn't even care to at that time. I was so careless, right? But I had ambition. I always look back and I was like, okay, I was ambitious already, right? But I wasn't doing it
the right
way. And I always thought I would be successful and go to college and do things the right way, but that didn't turn out that way, right? So I kept just going further and further down the path, right? And then that relationship turned toxic. So I was in a toxic, depressing, like, relationship for 4 years, where I remember like thinking like, if I can get out of this one day, like, I am gonna work on myself. Like, I cannot continue to be, with someone I knew was wrong. I knew that what I was putting up with was not right. That love was not supposed to hurt that way, that you're not supposed to be cheated on or disrespected, or all these things where you get emotionally abused, and also we got to the point where I was physically hurt as well. So I went through a lot, and my daughter got to experience all that. Okay, so it was tough. Sometimes we have that conversation even up to this day today. Like, it's hard to hear her side of the story, and to accept that, like, to take that responsibility for the screw up, right, that I did. But I was young. Yeah, her perspective. And, but I thank God for her, because she's always been my rock. So I always say, like, everything happens for a reason. Like, I didn't know I needed my daughter to be a better person. Like, she made me a better person. Why are you crying now,
I know, we're crying over here, guys.
Yeah, she has a whole other mindset than me. She's 24, graduated college, something I didn't do, and I was mentioning to you earlier, no one in my family has done. So
she's the first one that...
The first one that graduated, yeah. And she has a really, really good mindset on her. So it's like, over the years I realized, what I wanted to be as a parent, and be able to know that they're okay. It's okay for them to mess up, right? I'm always gonna have their back, and not for them to have that, right? But it's been tough because in that 4-year relationship, any little confidence that I had was destroyed, like 100%. Like, I didn't believe in myself. I believed that I needed a man to make me feel, good, because that's what he did to me. He really brainwashed me to believe that no one was ever gonna love me the way that he did, and being a teen mom, and you don't have anything to fall back on, and you don't, like, all these things, right? Like my physical, my stretch marks, all these things that were criticized in that time, and you believe it, right? Over 4 years, if it's constantly being fed to you a little bit each day, when you fight or when they want to make you feel lower than them, which is the case, they become manipulative in that sense, that they know they can manipulate you to do whatever they want by bringing you down. So I remember at the end of this relationship, quote unquote, like, I was pregnant, and I went through a lot. He had another girlfriend that I knew about, and I was pregnant at home, and it was so depressing, and I would cry and pray to God to help me get out of this. Like, and I remember thinking, one day I'm gonna write a book about this, because I need other women to know that if I can get out of this, they can get out of it. It was that intense in that time. At least it felt like for me, and it actually carried on into my life for a long time, up until I started Team Beauty. And I don't think I let go of that hurt and the pain until maybe a year or two after, like, Team Beauty. So yeah.
I was gonna ask that. So when was that point, right, of no return, or that point where you're like, let go of that version of you, and said, like, I'm gonna step into my power, like, I'm going to start doing what I know is right, or what I know I need to do for myself, or I'm not gonna feed into this anymore, I'm not gonna accept this for myself anymore. And you've talked about many things up to now. You've talked about, emotional abuse. You've talked about, lowering your self-confidence, the disrespect, so many things on top of, getting pregnant twice, right? And still not having something like stable, right? Financially or relationally. So when was that point where you're like, okay, Bella deserves better. I am worth better. I need to start acting upon this. And before you answer, for all of our listeners, that is the reason why our environment, is so important. what you listen to, you
Yeah.
know, the people that you're surrounded with, what you're attending to, right? Like, what are you prioritizing in your life, and is that taking you down the road that you want to be? Like, is that aligned with the goals that you have? Whether, you know, so many times, Bella, we talk about like, oh, like I want to lose weight, or I want to feel good, and I want, and I feel like this whole series we've been talking about your self-love is in complete alignment with you even reaching any of those goals. Like, you can't say you want to lose 20 pounds and then not understand what it means to put yourself first.
Yeah.
So when was it for you that you said, like, I'm drawing the line and I need to get out?
Yeah. Well, I think that God drew the line for me.
A fuerza.
Yes. A fuerzas. You know, we ended up getting locked up, both of us.
You went to jail.
I went to jail. Like, we got raided one morning, dropped off my daughter at the bus stop, came back to my apartment. I was pregnant, so I was tired, and I laid down, and then, you know, they came in. Like, they didn't knock, they almost threw down my door. And I thought something had happened, something crazy. And it was just my past biting me in the ass, because, you know, I had told you I got involved in legal activities prior to that. I had already stopped, but there was a case there that had been opened, and they finally had, you know, the, I guess, evidence or whatever to come lock us up. So they did. They came and he was at his house, I was at mine, and they picked us up at the same time. So it was crazy. Like, in my lifetime, I never ever imagined, like, I thought I was already done with it. Like, I had already been done with it for a little over a year, right? And you know, you're thinking you're already moving forward, but in all reality, esto apenas se pone bueno. Like, I was like, it was crazy time. I was 5 months pregnant. I spent 2 weeks in jail. My parents went through hell again. There I go, being the black sheep of the family. And, you know, when I got out, I was on house arrest for an entire year, back at my parents' house where I didn't want to be. But this time it was different, right? And, you know, I just saw my parents do so much and give so much. And even though they were hurt, like, you know, just show all that love that I needed at the time. But it still took me a good 2 years after giving birth. Like, after that happened, it took me a good 2 years to open up my eyes to everything that I had been living and realize that it was an answered prayer. Because when I got locked up, I thought I was going to lose my son. I thought I was going to go to jail. And it wasn't going to be for like a few months from what the attorney had said, right? So that was my worst fear. And I knew something needed to change then. Like, I didn't understand why God had taken, you know, Ramsey's dad away, because they didn't let him out. They let me out and not him. And it was a hard pill to swallow, that I was going to be a single mom again, that Ramsey wasn't going to get to meet his dad, you know, and so it was a lot. But at the end of the day, you understand that God was answering that prayer, that, you know, I had asked him so much to answer, but I couldn't do it on my own.
And sometimes we don't realize that it's not going to look the way that, as clean as we want it to, right? It's like the prayer sometimes doesn't look as clean. And for some people, the situations could look like everything is hard, right? So whether it's, you know, not being addicted to food anymore or sweets, right? That could be so hard for somebody. As hard as, you know, maybe it could be releasing a relationship, or, you know, going through the things that you've gone through. And at the end of the day, I love how you mentioned that, you know, God answers our prayers, and, you know, you're gonna survive, right?
Definitely.
But we can't. Diego always says, my husband always says, right, that it's like you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them like once you're already at the next level of your life is when you're like I'm so grateful that even though it was so hard,
it was hard. And in that moment, that's not what you're thinking. In that moment, you're feeling upset, you're feeling angry, you're feeling hurt, resentful, you know. like, why me? That victim mentality. And I feel like I had that mentality for a really long time because that's what I knew.
That's what you
That's
knew.
what I knew. You know, I knew that, like, me personally, I would say, like, life has just been so hard for me. Life just keeps kicking me in the butt. Like, life just keeps throwing things at me. What else are you going to throw at me, right? It was that, like, that. Instead of taking responsibility, which I had never really done up until I started to do personal development, that I understood, right?
Yes.
But I blamed the circumstances. I blamed life. I blamed Ramsey's dad. For a long time, it was me blaming him for putting me through that. And then when you're at peace with things and you start to look back and really understand, like, I understood that I made those decisions. Like, I made the decision to stay because I didn't want to go through the hurt, right, of not being with him. But instead, I made the decision to stay and get hurt having him there. So, you know, a lot of times we make these decisions and we don't leave a toxic relationship or even a friendship. We have toxic friendships too that we don't acknowledge sometimes, you know, and it could be a friendship, it could be a relationship with you know, a significant other, family member, but we need, you know, to learn to be able to say, hey, like, this is not serving me, right? But it's hard. It's easier said than done.
For sure.
Yeah, definitely easier said than done. But I did get to that point where I needed to show my daughter that and my son, right? My son made a lot of changes for me internally, emotionally, like, because you know, 3 years in, they just said, hey, you know, you've time served. You've been on house arrest for almost 2 years. They gave me time served. So I was like, this is my opportunity to change my life, right? So I started searching, working, started from the bottom, working $8 an hour job again, and started, like, doing things and changing that. And then I opened my own business in 2009. And, you know, for me, it was just, I was already trying to be better, but I didn't really know how. So I still had some bad habits, right? Going out, doing partying on the weekends and stuff like that.
There's this thing, right, in the mindset. And I think this is the last point where, you know, it's like this money conversation, right? And I mean, we could talk about the money conversation, I think, on the second round, but
Yeah.
it's like the money conversation because it's like you didn't grow up, you know, having things, right? Like, oh my God, like my life was so amazing, materialistically, right? Or financially. You grew up, you had your kids very young, teen mom, your relationships weren't stable, but you're still, like, coming out of all of this, right? Like, we've already cried and it's hard, and you're like, I'm gonna get up, like, I'm gonna get to work. And through these years, right, you became an entrepreneur, slowly started, you know, hustling, doing, you know, a little business, a side business, you know, opening yourself to different opportunities. So for me, it's not what you were doing. For me, I want to know, like, what is Bella's mindset? What is that little voice inside of your head that is telling you, hustle? Like, obviously you like the money because, you know, you were already starting to see, you know, like, hey, I want to get out of my house. I want to give me some money. Like, I can do this. But now that you're, okay, cleaning up, what is that mindset where you're like, I'm not going to do $8 an hour. I need to do more. You know, what was that mindset inside of you?
I've always hustled since I was little. Even when it was play pretend, right? Like, it's always been something in my mind. Then, you know, I went through that stage where I was doing things the wrong way, and I got to experience what having money felt like. But for me, it was like, okay, I need to be able to experience this without having to watch my back. I don't ever want to put my kids in this situation again. And they only have me. I'm a single mom, so either I'm gonna constantly be, you know, working paycheck to paycheck, being on welfare, you know, because I did survive off of food stamps and WIC and all that stuff, Medicare, Medicaid for the kids. And at that time, I needed it. But I got to this point where I was like, okay, like, is this the life that you want? I didn't fully understand it until one day I was at the store buying groceries, you know, with the Louis Vuitton that they had gifted me and a food stamps card. Okay, and I'm buying food with food stamps, and I'm like, what? Like, this doesn't feel right? So I don't know, like your mind sometimes it just starts, it makes you think, right? So I was thinking on the way home, like, I don't want to qualify for food stamps anymore. Like, I don't want to be that person. I want to change my situation. But I grew up with that being okay, right? And maybe it was okay at that time because that's what my parents knew. My dad always worked really, really hard. He worked 60, 80 hours a week. He was a welder, made decent money. So, I feel like, he showed us what hard work is, but it was also okay to be on welfare, right? So for me, that one time, it made me think like, I don't want this for myself. I want to be able to come buy groceries with cash, like, and then it made me evaluate it and analyze and think, if I qualify for food stamps, that means I'm low income. I don't want to be low income. Like, all these things started crossing my mind, which in reality, I had not really put any thought into it. It was just my norm. It was my norm. The more you qualify for, the better. You know what I mean? Like, and so that made me want to change. Aside from the fact that as a single mom, I didn't have a lot of help from my kid's dad. And for me, it's like, man, you know what? For me to be asking a guy for money, like, screw that. Like, I need to be successful. I need to make shit happen. I'm going to give my kids everything that they need and they want. And they're going to know mom's got them. Like, not, oh, like, ask dad and then dad is like, no, I can't afford it. Like, no, like, that's not what I want for them. Like, I want them to know that I got them and that they don't need anybody. So that was my drive for a really long time, aside from, proving to some people in my past, that I was going to make it, and that those things that they had told me, that I had to let that go and become the person that was complete opposite of that. And for a long time, that drove me, like, I prove to you that you're wrong, and I've been able to do that. Yes. And then also my parents, I saw the happiness that it brought to my parents when they saw me changing. They saw me, like, transforming my life. And my mom would ask me, like, you don't drink anymore, right? Because they would bring alcohol to the family gatherings. And so a lot of little big things drove me to, want to make that change.
You had a big why, your kids, right? You wanted to prove people wrong. Yeah. That's a big why. That was one of my whys when I got started on my business. So that's a big why, right? And then obviously being able to bring them the good in life, right? And that you were able to do that. And so time has passed, right? 7 years in Team Beauty, and working the business as well, impacting women's lives, and you've been able to accomplish so much, and you've been able to take your kids on vacations, give them a life that you've always wanted to provide for them. And I mean, eres una chingona. That's what I have to say. Like, you are a powerful woman, and it's so beautiful to see that, to me, I respect that a lot, right? Because just as you were listening, we were crying, and it's like you go back to those moments, putting yourself in those shoes, and it's like so hard, and you are here standing, right? Alive. Giving life to your kids, and obviously amazing kids who are great kids, right? Like, their life is completely different, to what you knew at the ages that they are today. And so what are some 2-3 things that you could tell everyone listening today, if they could take some action this week, what would you say to them so they could take with them and put it into action?
Well, I think it's super important to take time to heal, and find ways to heal. And for me, it was Team Beauty, like, be doing the personal development, reading the books, hearing things from different people that like, oh, that person's been through it before. And before Team Beauty, I never really asked for help. I would share all my misery with my friends, but I didn't have anybody that was doing better than me that could be like, hey, I've been through that and it's going to get better. If that makes any sense. Yes. So that's something that for me, it's been life-changing, listening to a lot of audios and doing a lot of personal, like, healing, like a lot of healing and rewiring my mind to what I thought. right? Because obviously, like, I felt like, hey, if what you've done in the past didn't work, you need to make some changes, right? Our mental health is so important. It's so important. I don't think that for a long time, I think that people sometimes just think that if you're depressed or if you're going through something, you can just snap out of it, and you can't always, right? And I've experienced that recently, right? But that is so important, that you take care of your mind, that you share, that you open up to someone, and that you get advice from someone that's doing better.
The disclaimer is in there. Get advice from someone doing better than you.
because like I said, my friendships before, it would be like me sitting here talking to you and just telling you my miserable stuff that I was going through, and then them telling me all the misery, and that's it. Like, no one's getting ahead, no one's going anywhere. We're just kind of like stagnant, right? So, like, search for those people, and and don't be afraid to ask, and open up. I think that's so important. Another thing is gonna be that we're gonna keep falling in life. Things are gonna keep happening to us, and it's not gonna stop. Those have been some major life events for me, but things are always gonna happen. Not always like as tragic, right? But things are always gonna happen. So the stronger you are mentally, the stronger you are, emotionally, and I think that you'll be able to handle these situations a little bit better, because I'm definitely not the same person that I was when I was 18, 19. And for women that are going through any type of toxic relationship or anything like that, I think that just learn to love yourself and value yourself, and don't ever feel like you need to be there. If you are not happy, if you're not being honored and valued and taken care of, then there's not a chance. For sure, there's a better place for you. Like, there is a better place for you. There is going to be someone that's going to treat you better, that's going to respect you and love you. And if you're not in that position right now, like, it's okay to walk away, and it's going to hurt, but it's better for you to leave with your pride, which I didn't have at that, and that respect for yourself, that I know it took me a long time to gain back, to build myself back up, because I was definitely destroyed for many, many years. And
wow, amazing, Bella. Thank you so much for sharing this time with us. Powerful story, and most importantly, know that we value you, we respect you, and we see you like somebody that is powerful, somebody that is worth it, someone that has been a role model, whether you believe it or not, to your children. And beautiful things are coming, forward. And so here we have a little gift for you, which you're probably going to have several of these, but we are gifting our guest speakers the Team Beauty gift for our pink party coming up, you guys. So it's already this Sunday, Bella. This Sunday we'll be celebrating 8 years of Team Beauty, of empowering women, of uplifting them, of giving you avenues, where you could feel strong, where you can find that self-love, where you could feel, loved inside of yourself, where you can find the next version of you. And at the end of the day, whether it's a physical transformation, a mindset transformation, or an economic transformation, that's what we'll be celebrating on Sunday with all of our beauties.
I'm excited.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Make sure you tag, you share, post it to your stories, tag Bella, tag Team Beauty Official, and we will see you on the next one.